everybody, it is Calxiyn and Hunter here, and today we are going to be discussing RWBY Volume 9. I won't call this a theory because it is going to be more of a discussion video about Neo's fate. Now listen, okay? You may see all this and you may think, wow, Cal is so f***ing biased. However, I would like to preface this with, this video is going to be as unbiased as feasibly possible, and I think that I can do that.
That word feasibly is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
But I am going to justify this with logic and with that makes sense, okay? And so, let's talk about this, okay?
Can I get that tattooed on my body?
Sure.
With logic and that makes sense.
So a lot of people think that Neo may die in Volume 9. And to that I say, I don't think that would be a good idea. I'm not saying that I don't think that it would happen. I'm saying I think it would be bad. And so I think that that is what we are here to discuss today, because there is a difference between something being plausible and something being poorly written. RWBY is ultimately a story. There needs to be narrative interest. There needs to be a compelling reason for Neo to be here on the island at this moment, at this time. And to me, killing Neo is not something that is island specific or needs to happen right now in this specific arc. And maybe as we see more, something will change that, but there is really no reason why the Neo conflict could not be vacuoized, right? Or happen in vacuo either. There needs to be a better reason why she fell. It's like Jean. Jean could have gotten through the portal, but they put him here for a reason. It better be a good reason. And I just don't think Neo dying here is the best reason to have her here. Because Neo and RWBY having a fight and RWBY killing Neo because Neo won't stop revenging is something that can happen literally anywhere on Remnant, and that is not unique in any way to the island. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's the very first thing that I want to talk about, is that in terms of RWBY as a story, and thinking about all of these characters serving a specific narrative function. It's the same as like Jean falling. Like if Jean fell just so he can like sit there and cry about like, you know, how bad and guilty he feels, like that's not interesting. Jean being the knight, that's where the interest is. Or something happening to Jean that is manipulated specifically by the island that makes him feel more guilty about his previous actions. And so that's my first thing, is that everybody must have fallen down here for a reason. And I think Neo falling down here just to die is not a good reason, because that can happen anywhere else on Remnant and you would get practically the exact same result. So in terms of the writing on that actually being good, I'm gonna say no. That doesn't mean it may not happen, because bad writing things happen in RWBY and happen in other things all the time. But I'm hoping that, like, under the assumption that it is good, and we are making the argument about good versus likely, if that makes sense. That I don't think would be a good decision to kill Neo right here. The other problem I have in terms of like for a story narrative reason for killing Neo is that we have already seen 4 characters get so sucked in with revenge that they go off and fucking die. Okay, first of all, you have Adam, right? He's so obsessed with Blake and he can't let it go, and he wants revenge like for Blake embarrassing him and like leaving him and everything. And then Adam dies, okay? That's the revenge story. He's dead. Hazel wants revenge for what Ozpin did to Gretchen, finds out that Ozpin did not do the thing to Gretchen, fights against Salem, and dies. He changes, but he still dies. Watts wants revenge against Ironwood and Pietro, and Watts dies, okay? So we have already gotten 3 characters, and I'm pretty sure there's one more in there that I can't see.
You said 4,
I
and
said
I'm going
4.
through
I'm
my
looking
head
for the other one.
of like, who, Jacques?
Well, I'm saying that this would be
Jacques wanted revenge against Ironwood, and so
he also died. Yeah.
So he's probably
I was actually trying to say that Neo was the 4th, like Neo would be the 4th time it happened, but Neo would be the fucking 5th time that it's happened, and I kind of think that's a little ridiculous, right? Because I'm just saying, if RWBY is a story, what story?
Roman kind of went after RWBY because he was upset with RWBY
and so
being put away, so
Roman
maybe she's the 6th.
did that, right? And so, like, that's a little stretch. But basically what I'm saying is that RWBY is a story that is trying to convey some sort of theme or some sort of message. So I ask you, dear listener.
Elia didn't die, but she did try to get revenge on Blake.
And revenge is a very common
6.5
human motivation, right? So I don't have a problem with people wanting revenge. It's the fact that this character
sure you
and
Cal
never
still
gave
wants
it up.
plenty of
Right?
revenge
You know
on
what I
various
mean?
people.
This idea that like, oh, well, this character, they were so revenging that they could not give up their revenge. We have seen
Vengeful.
that so many fucking times. I know. But I'm kidding around. That is the other reason why Neo dying here is bad. Because we have seen this story play out multiple times already with multiple characters of varying ages and races and genders and everything. Like, you know what I mean? We have seen it all. What good does it do for the narrative to have another Adam than RWBY kills Neo? I think that that's the other reason why I really, really hate the idea that Neo is going to die, because a lot of people seem to have a hate boner for Neo, but are not using their brains in terms of why should that happen, in terms of the actual overarching story and the messages that RWBY wants to send. Why should that happen? And some people have made the argument that it's going to be for RWBY's development, I guess, but I feel like that's not really an upgrade for RWBY. I think that's a downgrade. For RWBY to kill somebody like that, I don't know. Like, I feel like people want to see, like, RWBY murder and then have a mental breakdown because she did the murder. But she's already having a mental breakdown without murder. Like, I feel like that people kind of want RWBY to be this, like, edgy shonen protagonist who finally gets pushed to the breaking point and kills someone. But that kind of goes against the actual nature of who RWBY is, I feel. Because RWBY believes in unity and heroes in the fairy tales. I understand that her fighting Neo would be in self-defense if Neo doesn't back down, but it is not within RWBY's characterization at this current time for her to want to kill versus resolve, I think, except for Cinder. Like, when RWBY can resolve, she tries to resolve, I feel. Neo having the same revenge story as other characters brings nothing new to the narrative because we've seen it all before. And then also, the development that it would give other characters, I don't see that making a lot of sense. Like, people say it would give development to RWBY, but I don't think that actually makes any sense. The repetitiveness of a revenge arc in a character, there is no character, I don't think, other than Ilya, that has gone after revenge and then changed. Yeah, like changed direction or changed sides.
More chill. Well, with Neo, it's like she just wants to avenge Roman.
Exactly. The only other thing, and this is more an appeal to emotion argument, right? I think it would be a very bad idea for them to create a whole book around a character when that, right before that character is going to be given any prominence, that has a lot of neurodivergent people relating directly to her. People like me that are neurodivergent, or like there are people in our Discord server that like are mute or like have selective mutism, and we've talked about this. It would kind of feel shitty if they spent all this time trying to get us on board with Neo only to have her die by RWBY. That would not make me like RWBY anymore. That would make me like RWBY a lot less. Yeah. Especially when, here's my issue, right? If something can be solved by a simple communication issue, it is personally, I think, annoying to the audience to see that communication issue never get resolved. If they fight and RWBY kills Neo on the false premise, that'd be kind of shitty.
This whole
thing is only based on the fact that Neo thinks that RWBY killed Roman. If they can resolve that, Neo is no longer going to be after RWBY. She would be after Cinder or after no one at all. She would just move on and continue on with life. And so I feel like it's like in those like YA novels where the couple has a communication issue that could be solved by just talking to each other very easily. That's how I kind of feel about this. It could be solved very easily. And so I feel like that would just annoy a lot of people. Like, why did you build up the likability for this character only to kill them in a way which is very... If the audience can see the multiple routes that the show can take, and those routes may be a bit more interesting than just killing her, I think people are going to be a little upset, and that may be justified. I think, at least for me, the reluctant truce or Neo staying in Wonderland is better. Like, it just makes more sense to me. I think that is a little bit more interesting. Though I would like to see the reluctant truce angle go a little further. Her staying in Wonderland is something I'm okay with. The reluctant truce. That is ideally, I think, what a lot of people want. Not even a reluctant truce permanently, like Neo helps to fight Salem, but like they may get off the island and then Neo's like, okay, bye. You know what I mean? She just leaves. She goes into the vacuo desert and we kind of never find out what happens to her. That would make me a little sad that she doesn't stay with Team RWBY.
But then
if she
you
just
maybe
goes
get some
off
like more stories about what happens.
Yeah. If she just goes off into the world, I'm okay with that too. There's only one more thing that I would like to add to all of this. And that is that one of RWBY's core themes is keep moving forward, right?
Yes.
And so I feel like that it does a big disservice to Neo's character if you kill her without that she moved forward from her grief and that she is living for herself and no longer only living to avenge Roman. Because with Adam, that's fine because Adam was a bad person. With Hazel, that's fine because the whole point is Hazel made mistakes. With Watts,
and he also changed at the end. He let go of that.
With Watts, that's fine because Watts is Watts and he was never going to change, right?
Wasn't a great
but I feel like that RWBY has been trying to make a point that this generation will not make the same mistakes as the previous one. Hazel dies so Emerald can have that chance to change sides and do the right thing. Killing Neo kind of takes away from that, like, the kids are all right. The kids are better.
Kids are not
the kids are better than their predecessors were. While Roman died trying to kill RWBY, as you said, Neo can actually change and start to live for herself and move on. Because I feel like, I don't know, and I don't want to make this about the disability, like you can't do bad things to a disabled character, but at the same time, I kind of feel like that it would be shitty if she doesn't get the opportunity to move forward. It's like she doesn't deserve a happy ending, even though she could get one.
She's pretty morally compromised.
Right. But I'm just saying in terms of,
and I feel like that would be what they would focus on more.
But is there not, I guess that's what I'm saying, is there not that sympathy for someone who was...
I do have sympathy.
No, not you. But I'm saying, like, in terms of, like, the greater narrative, is there not any sympathy for someone that was completely disregarded by, like, her parents and society and pretty much every other person except for Roman, and she lost that support system, and that's what made her kind of, you know, fly off the handle. It's not me saying she's a good person and, like, that negates the bad things she's done, but it's more so that I feel like that shouldn't RWBY try to push the message that no, you can keep moving forward and you can keep living your life and you can find a new support system, not just like, oh yeah, you lost your support system.
And you can finally kill the person you want to kill.
Well, no, but like, you know
if you believe in yourself and work hard enough and stay true to yourself, you can finally murder that guy.
But it's like, it's almost like, to me, I guess, seeing Neo as I do, it would almost be like if they killed Neo, that would give the message to me that there is actually no hope. When you lose that person you love so much, there is no hope other than dying, basically. That's how that would kind of read to me. It depends on how they do it, but that's really why I don't like that
But how would
option.
you feel about Neo being a tragic character? And this is someone who has prominently stated, like, my Neo love, I think maybe even goes, it never reached your heights to say, but I love Neo as well, for many of those same reasons. But, like, what if she becomes a kind of tragic character?
There's a time and place for tragedy, and I wonder if
because, like, to an extent, Hazel's tragic, to an extent, Adam's tragic.
But that's the dividing line, I feel, is that the adults are tragic, but the kids are the hope. I understand what you're saying, Hunter, about her being tragic. I guess the way that I look at things is I'm like, is there not enough tragedy in the world already? You can't give this character, at least, if not a happy ending, an ending where it doesn't end in, like, you know, horrendous amounts of, like, RWBY sticking her through with a scythe, right?
I got it.
Because a tragic kind of bittersweet ending to me would be her staying on the island, because she hasn't really moved on from her childhood fantasies, but that's her choice.
What if during the 8th season she learns, I'm tired of revenge, I don't want to do this anymore?
Yeah, and so I feel like
But that's kind of growth.
Yeah, and I think that's good.
Like, Roman wouldn't want me to just be angry all the time.
And that's basically what I want, right? And whether she decides to stay on the island for that reason, or she develops a truce for that reason, right?
And people would you would need to watch our previous
the relic?
Neo getting the relic and sneaking it away, and it's in the Neverland.
Yeah.
So what if she asked Jin for what Roman would want for her?
That's
and they get this
sad.
And they get this kind of like Roman appears.
So it's not even what happened to Roman. She asked RWBY to ask what Roman would have wanted.
Or maybe she asked that because like, once again, you have to watch that other 30-minute video.
Right.
But it's like it resets when it goes to the Neverworld. So like, what if she asked to ask him and he says like, I don't want you to like, yeah, I mean, maybe, but.
Yeah, that's actually very sweet.
I want you to be happy.
I kind of like, what if that's what RWBY does? Like, what if Neo says, show me what happened to Roman? Yeah. Neo tells RWBY, ask what happened to Roman. But then RWBY is like light bulb, what would Roman have wanted for Neo?
Oh my god, we should make little bracelets to say, what would Roman do?
No.
WWRD.
But, like, what if that's it? Because that's actually very interesting to me, because then that's, like, that to me is completely in RWBY's character to do. Is that she, I don't know, kind of believes in the best. And kind of wants the best. And so she asks the relic, like, what would Roman want for Neo in order to sway her to give up the revenge? That, to me, makes logical, perfect, incense, like, RWBY character versus, like, RWBY just fucking killing her. You know, that speaks to me in terms of, like, that speaks to me in terms of, like, yeah, RWBY would totally
you want
do
that closure.
Yeah, that is, like, RWBY
Neo
would definitely.
deserves closure. And I think that would be, like, the cool, that would kind of be more Ilya, and also Hazel, where it's like, no, I'm not gonna revenge. This isn't helpful for me. And she's like, and so, maybe she just leaves, kind of.
Whether she stays on the island.
Yeah.
Right? Here are my choices for Neo.
I think her staying on the island, as much as that's kind of sad, part of me does want her to go out into the wide world of Remnant and have Neo adventures. Yeah. But I think the more closure, the better for the audience and the better for the show proper. With her staying there in the magical world.
So, in terms of closure, because we did talk about that
and it's just like, people are lovely here. People don't, like... People don't lie to you here. Yeah. People don't leave you here.
People understand her.
People understand me here.
Right? Like, this is another place where she finally feels understood.
And maybe she has
that I'm okay with.
That would be good. And she never fucks Fox.
And I would be sad that she never got to fuck Fox. But, you know, it kind of leaves it open-ended because Neo being there doesn't mean she'll always stay there. She could always leave after, you know, epilogue. After Salem is defeated, they could fish her out of there using the Relic of Creation, right? The Neo options that I would be okay with, and I talked about this on Twitter a little bit. So, like, Neo staying in the Ever After, I think would be a bittersweet ending, but would actually make some sense to me. Like, she never fit in, really, in Remnant, and so her staying in, like, the fairy tale world of her dreams, I think would actually make some sense. Like, if that's sort of the bittersweet ending, is that Neo decides not to return to Remnant and she stays there. I would cry still and be a little sad, but it's not death, but it still removes her from the narrative permanently, and that to me would make sense, because if what we want to do, like, is remove the character permanently from the actual narrative, having Neo stay on the island would be a function of the island that you cannot get by having RWBY and Neo fight anywhere else in Remnant. That Neo is, like, enchanted by this place, and it's just like the fairy tales she read as a kid, and that even though, like, Roman's gone, maybe she can move forward and she can be happy here. Like, that's sort of the vibes, and that's the idea. So, she doesn't get a truce with Team RWBY, and they don't work together, but she just kind of stays there. Like, she stops revenging after RWBY, because if you guys watched our Relic video, maybe because of those things, or just you know, through communication, I guess.
And she
like,
learns that RWBY
is not responsible. Exactly. And so she decides to stay there on the island. That to me is an acceptable outcome, because narratively, to me, that makes a lot of sense, especially reading Roman Holiday. That's kind of a happy ending for Neo, I think, is living in, like, a fantasy world that is more magical and less full of conflict and grim, and, like, the world is ending. Like, that's something I think that I would be okay with, even though I'd be sad. So this is when I said I could put my bias away, because all of you guys know that I want Neo to go to Vacuo and fuck Fox, okay? But, okay, I can be unbiased and admit that the Ever After Neo ending would be good to me and still be well written, even if it's not what I want, because that's what we do here, guys. We can put the bias away. So Ever After ending, I'm okay with. I think that that actually makes a lot of sense for Neo's character to stay there. So let's talk about the truce, redemption, whatever you want to call it, right? So a lot of people seem to have a problem with Neo making a reluctant temporary truce with Team RWBY. People argue that Neo is a bad person and she's like a criminal and she's murderous and enjoys murdering people, which is like, okay.
She looks good doing it.
But at the same time, like, in terms of that, I would like to put forward to the court Okay, sample number 1. Do you remember how Emerald and Mercury went to go kill Tuxin for literally no reason? Like, Cinder didn't even tell them to. It was Torchwick's job, but he wasn't doing it fast enough. So they just wandered in there and killed him.
Yeah,
and, you know, they didn't kill him reluctantly. They didn't, like, give him a headshot or poison or, like, kill him in a slow way. They came in there, taunted him, let him know that they were going to kill him, and then made him fight. You know, people are like, well, Emerald's different. Emerald didn't do well. Emerald didn't try to kill Yang. Like, I feel like people only care that Neo tried to kill Yang.
Why does the person who's arguing against you sound like Goofy?
But do you understand what I'm saying? Like, Emerald did bad things.
Yeah.
And she did not care, and
but she did it with style, so I let it go.
She did not care, and she was not remorseful. So I feel like this idea that, like, Emerald gets a pass, but Neo doesn't is kind of a little bit biased, you know? Because I think if Emerald can be changed sides, I'm not going to call her redeemed, right? But, like, if Emerald can decide to change sides, Neo has done less than Emerald, I feel, in my personal opinion, but if you want to be, I guess, less biased, equal to Emerald at the very least. And then you have characters like Mercury, who kind of have this fuck you, got mine attitude, I don't care because we're gonna rule the world. He only cares because the world's gonna end. He's not a good person either. That's literally the only reason why he cares. So I don't understand this idea that, like, Neo needs to be remorseful to work with Team RWBY or something, because I don't think Mercury's gonna be remorseful. I think that he just doesn't want to blow up and die like anybody. Because the conflict is rooted in this idea that Neo is only mad at RWBY because RWBY killed Roman. She's not trying to kill them just to kill them. She's killing them for an explicit purpose, and if that purpose is removed, she would not be after them anymore. So it's easy to see how at least a reluctant, very reluctant, I'm not saying she's gonna turn into a good person, but she just does villainous things now for Team RWBY. She steals an airship.
It's kind of the argument of, like, RWBY's just, like, slowly acknowledging, like, hey, we're against a genocidal, like, witch goddess that wants to end all of humanity. Neo's not great. Emerald has a checkered past, but you kind of gotta, like, and, like, just sort of accept people, accept the help as they are.
There's no more huntsmen, right? Everybody in Mistral is dead. All the Mistral huntsmen apparently are dead, right? I personally think, and there's no evidence to
Beacon's
say
gone
this,
to shit. Atlas has gone to shit.
I think in the Vacuo arc, Salem is going to play to Vacuo's survivalist sensibilities and be like, hey, you know, all I want is the relic, give me that, and I won't kill you. And then an angry mob storms Theodore's little pyramid and tries to get him to give them the relic. I can totally see that happening, because that's exactly in character with Vacuo, right?
Yeah.
It's that they just want to survive. So if Salem goes on the loudspeaker and is like, yo.
But they're also feisty, so maybe they'd go fuck yourself,
maybe,
and then try to win a fight.
Some of them, I think, would try. When that doesn't work, they would storm Theodore, and they would go get the relic. So at least some of the Vacuo huntsmen, I would bet money, we don't give a shit, you know? Like, and they just don't know that Salem's gonna destroy the world or whatever. They're hard to convince. And so that's the other thing. Like, good help is hard to find these days, all right? At least Neo, you know, she's a skilled huntress at the very least, so killing her, at least from Team RWBY side, if Neo is not trying to kill them anymore, killing Neo would be kind of a waste. Tier list preference, okay? Obviously, the reluctant truce with Team RWBY, and they go after Cinder instead. That is my preference. I do think it kind of slightly goes against the idea of Neo giving up revenge, because it's just revenge over a different person. But here's how I see it. It's, instead of living for Roman, it's living for herself.
Because she learns that Salem's going to destroy the world.
Right, she has a personal grudge with Cinder now, right? And so, instead of just living for Roman's memory, she decides what to do, and she wants to go fuck up Cinder.
Which I like.
And I like the idea of that reluctant
I like the
truce.
idea of RWBY and Jean and Neo all fighting Cinder at the very end and murdering her.
And I kind of like that, right? And so I think that is what I want. Some people really hate that. I don't care. Cry about it. If it happens, you can cry, okay? Because I really like it. I really like that sort of ending. And then Neo does all, right? Neo likes to murder people, but now she likes to murder people for the good guys, okay? Neo likes to steal airships. She steals airships from the good guys, right? Like, all of Neo's negative traits can be used for the good guys. And Neo's semblance in combination with Emerald's semblance would be so fucking broken, it would be great. So I would like to see, like, that's what I would like to see by the end of the show. I would kind of like to see, like, Emerald and Mercury and Neo, like all of the villain children, if you want to call it that, as opposed to the villain adults like Tyrion, and most of the villain adults are dead.
Villain
right?
kids.
Exactly, like, the villain kids are all redeemed, and then, you know, Cinder, it's kind of like, is she too far gone? Is she not too far gone? And that's like a whole other conversation, right? But that's what I want. I want the reluctant truce. I want Neo. And so here's the other thing, right? Okay? Why did E.C. Myers say, Neo, you could be anything you want, even a huntress? Because that could seem like foreshadowing to me, okay? So
That's
I'm
good, I
just
forgot
saying,
about that.
I'm just saying, E.C.
about that.
Myers, why would you do that to me if they're not getting her off the island? Because that is such a good piece of foreshadowing. Like, I know people are gonna be like, Cal, this is your own fault if Neo dies and you get upset and you quit the show because you shouldn't have read too much into it, but they shouldn't have said that in the book, okay?
I read your book, you son
Roman
of a
could have
bitch.
said anything, right? He could have said, you could be anything you want, even an accountant. Like, he didn't say that.
Even a barista.
You know,
even
he
a
could have
tax
said
accountant.
anything. Like, he could have said, like, you know,
Even a porn
like
star.
a celebrity.
Maybe not a
you know.
musician. A beauty and a non-conventional beauty influencer.
Like,
a professional dog walker.
Yeah, like,
A bin person.
why did you say huntsman?
An English teacher.
He could have even said, like, you could even be your own crime boss. Like, I could even work for you. Like,
You
he
could be
could
a
have said anything, but he said huntress, okay? So I'm just saying it'd be really good if Roman, right? We get that flash of Roman. What would Roman do? And we see that scene of them in the airship, and Roman's like, are you sure you want to stick with me? You could be anything you want, even a huntress. And that's the answer. That's what Roman would have wanted for her. Not to go down the life of crime, but for her to have been a huntress. Maybe that's what Roman would have wanted. The second preference I have is Neo going around the wide world of Remnant and doing her thing.
Crime business.
Okay, and maybe we don't see her until like the epilogue of the show. The only reason why I prefer that to Wonderland is because it opens up the opportunity for Fox and Neo. But technically, I do like Wonderland over Neo going out into the big wide world, because then Wonderland, it's like, this is the place where I belong.
Yeah.
It's more closure if it's Wonderland, right? As much as I would love Neo to travel the deserts of Vacuo and run into Team Coffee or whatever, I think that logically, right, the truce, Wonderland, and then going off into the distance.
I would agree.
Those are the good options, even though Wonderland would cause psychological damage to me. But I think I'd be okay as long as she wasn't dead. Because, you know...
Watch them kill her.
You guys won't hear from me on that. Like, you guys... I don't know. I'm just saying... I don't want to be dramatic. But if Ruby wasn't our source of income and Neo died, I would quit the show.
Really?
Like,
I don't believe you.
The only reason...
I don't believe you.
I mean, well, there's Team Coffee, so I guess
You'd
they're
be
okay.
really upset,
I would
but
be
you wouldn't
really
quit the
pissed.
show.
Well, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know.
You'd probably cry. I probably have to hold.
Like, if this video has shown anything, it's that I would be justified, because I think my points are valid,
Yes.
right? It's not just Neo bias. It's like, guys, please. Like, can we actually think about this, like, for a story purpose than to make Ruby, like, Eren Yeager or whatever? Like,
Yeah, I don't want
feel
Ruby
like
to be Eren Yeager.
Neo could die, but it would not be good. And I would tell people that to their face. I would tell Rooster Teeth that to their face.
My worst thing is that what if Neo dies in a way that I like?
Killing Neo is not moving forward. It is not, we are not the vibes are not there. So that is all that I have to say. I hope that you guys enjoyed. I think I covered everything. That's basically
You were pretty
it.
thorough.
Yeah, so I think that my argument stands, okay? It's not just a Neo stan. My argument also stands.
And I also feel like you could do the Roman thing even with
or without the relic, yeah.
With Neo, or Neo being the truth, or Neo staying in Neverland or leaving. Like, either way, you could have that Roman theme, which would be super cute.
There is one more thing that I would like to add in here that I just remembered looking at Hunter's shirt. It's very interesting that they would put Neo on the island when Ruby also loses her orange-haired best friend. You know what I mean? And so, like,
we've lost too many
there
gingers.
Could be a parallel there. Like, people think that is going to make RWBY more vengeful because RWBY is going to blame Neo for Penny's death, which doesn't make sense because they both fell at the same time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's Cinder's fault, but if anything, that's more of a reason why they should work together, because RWBY has now felt the trauma of losing someone very important to her the exact same way that Neo has. So now RWBY can be like, I know how you feel. I lost someone too. But it's not
They also
us.
were redhead.
It's about Cinder, right? Because we had that theory that that would happen with Jean. But I believe that that was before Penny died, that we had that sort of like thing that like Neo and Jean may relate because Jean lost Pyrrha and Neo lost
Everyone's
Roman.
lost a redhead.
Right?
They
But
should
it
be best
actually makes a
friends.
lot more sense now that RWBY and Neo will have that conversation and that RWBY will be like, look, I know how you feel. Like, I just lost someone too, but you know who's responsible for that? Cinder. Not me, not you, it's Cinder, right? And so, like, I think that that's something that they can incorporate and that would work really, really well, in my opinion. So, yeah. Bye! Hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you guys later. Bye!